First buck down in Oklahoma. It's kind of been a bummer of a year a little bit so far. Skunked on Colorado antelope, skunked on mule deer. But Oklahoma, which was kind of my fallback for making sure that I had meat in the freezer, has so far proven to be the promised land of giant white-tailed deer. So what I wanted to do was go through the actual shot analysis. There's some fascinating things that happen between the shot and the time the arrow actually impacts on the deer. And with the good camera that I'm using and the higher frame rate, we can really see the breakdown. So we're going to spend the majority of this video in the computer, and I'm going to kind of talk through the different steps. We're going to look at the how much the buck drops. I'm also going to talk about the arrow and the setup that I used, because it is completely different than what I used last year, and I have never had a deer die as fast as this one died. And I think some people are going to be surprised at what I used. So let's jump into the computer and analyze my first Oklahoma whitetail deer of 2021. You're going to see me a lot doing this, like looking at you and then looking over here because the computer's over here and the light and all this stuff. Don't worry about it. The first time I'm just going to kind of let it run and I'll talk through what's happening, but it's basically just like the deer comes in, the deer jumps in the pen, I shoot the deer. But it gives you kind of the idea of how it looks on camera the first run through. So I'd seen the two deer that are jumping into the pen walking about 100 yards away, so I had time to actually stand up, get ready, get the camera in position. Dude walks over. There's actually a nicer buck that's on the other side of the feeder, but he's too young, I can't shoot him. So this guy, nice deer, gets to a point, you can hear me draw right there. Now what I'm waiting for is for that right leg to move forward. Moves forward, I start pulling through the shot. Boom. Deer goes down. I reload another arrow. He makes it to that point right there, and he doesn't move. And within a minute and a half, that deer is done breathing. That's the fastest kill I've ever had on a deer. So let's get into some of the analysis. What I'm going to do is roll through a little bit of slow-mo so you can kind of see, and we're going to talk about arrow speed to the target. We're going to talk about how long before the deer starts reacting once he hears the noise, and then how far he's able to drop out of the shot. And then I'll tell you about the setup that I was using and what I think happened when the arrow actually goes in. So a little slow-mo action. It's kind of far away, but still gives you an idea. His head goes down, arrow, boom. So ultra slow-mo, this is and again, super slow-mo. So basically the way a camera is working is a video camera. It's essentially taking a bunch of still pictures, but quickly, and then stitching them together, basically just putting them side by side and then playing through. So it creates these still images in our mind that are connected that gives it motion. So that's what we're looking at here. But I can break it down and slow it down enough that you can see the individual frames of those pictures going through the sky. See the ripples start on him. He starts to duck. A lot more duckage than you would think. And then that huge tuft, boom, as that arrow hits. And down he goes. So let's move up to the next part. This is going to be a breakdown of how far this guy dips out of the way compared to where I was actually aiming. So if you notice the screen, there's that little arrow that's pointed to the spot. That is exactly where the arrow actually impacts. So to me, that's a money heart shot. That thing's going to go straight through him. It's going to break that offside leg. That's perfect. But watch what he does. He starts ducking. Tuft of hair. He's able to duck down this far in that short amount of time. But that's amazing to me. Let's do it one more time just so you can see it. That tuft of hair is the broadhead actually impacting and causing a ripple in the skin, an explosion through the skin. So let's move on to the next one. The reaction time kind of blows my mind. So the way the neurology works, basically, the sound waves hit your ear, and this is the same for basically any mammal, I would assume, hits your ear, there are little hairs inside of your ear that notice the concussion. A chemical response is created instantly that then goes into your spinal cord. And there is actually a muscle reaction that occurs from your spinal cord. It's not actually processing all the way in the brain because it would take too long. So if you walk into a room with a bunch of people and clap your hands really loudly in the back, everybody's going to turn really quickly. And what's happened is not a cognitive response. It's an instinctual response. It's a reflex that happens in the actual spinal cord, from what I understand from the 2 minutes of Googling that I did before this video. But that's fascinating because what that means is basically he's not thinking about what he's doing. What he's doing is just reacting. Something in his physiology is just reacting to that shot. So what you're looking at right here, and I'm actually going to go frame by frame, watch his front shoulder start to ripple. So you can't see it yet. You see it? All of a sudden that hair starts coming back. So that's that first, basically, the ripple where he's actually saying, oh my gosh, there's something coming. He's not hearing it. It's happening in his spinal column. So you can see those ripples start to go. His whole back starts to tense up. And I'm literally going frame by frame here as he's starting to drop out. He's dropping that left front leg. He's starting to basically try to barrel roll. Mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. The fact that these guys can move that much in that short amount of time. So basically, I'd counted beforehand, it's 12 pictures of movement. Like when that first ripple in his shoulder starts, 12 pictures. So 12 pictures, you take 60 pictures in 1 second, and it took 12 pictures. So it's literally less than a quarter of a second. And in a quarter of a second, he's able to drop enough that I mean, that shot, that's a bad shot. Like, that's not a great shot. I wanted that thing in his heart. But that's probably 6 inches worth of drop. That's crazy. All right, let's move on to this next one. So what I'm doing now is the amount of time from the time the actual bow goes off to when he starts moving. All right, so bow goes off, boom, right here. So you can see the arrow enter frame there. I've counted the number of pictures. I wanted to make sure that I actually got the arrow in frame, so all I did was kind of zoom in there. And 9 frames, 9 still pictures. Again, I'm taking 60 every second, and in 9 pictures, that front shoulder starts to move. So that's literally, we're pushing 1/10 of a second. Almost 1/10 of a second before that guy starts to react from the time the arrow exits the bow. 1/10 of a second. And you can see him just ripple up. Same thing again. My mind is blown. So now I'm going to show you just the whole thing one more time, just, with him walking in and the whole thing. But literally, from the time he comes into frame to the time he is completely not breathing, it was 3 minutes. Super fast, super efficient. Now, what did the thing that made this so spectacular? What was the killing tool, the killing devices? We'll talk about that in a second. So for the bow, I used my 80-pound PSE. So it's 80 pounds at just under 30 inches, 29 3/4. 80 pounds on a whitetail deer. Like, that's, how many people are doing that? Probably not very many. So what does 80 pounds do? It gets a lot of speed and it pushes a lot of momentum out of a 530 grain arrow. I used a Victory VAP SS. And this is where it gets a little weird. I wanted to try them. I know I'm going to get so much crap for this, but I wanted to try them. And here's why I wanted to try them. That deer's dead in a minute and a half. A minute and a half. Grim Reaper 3-blade whitetail special. It's a 2-inch cut. This is bananas. Super long ferrule. Super long thin blades. Like, it is literally kind of the anti. Don't show Troy the Ranch Fairy this. He's going to give me so much crap. But this is what I knew. I was not going to take a shot that wasn't exactly what I just got. I did not want to take a shot unless the animal was quartering away or perfect broadside with the height of my stand out of that tree. And I still didn't punch all the way through him. 80 pounds, 29 3/4 inch draw, 530 grain arrow is not a light arrow, going 290 feet per second. But this monster plunger on the front here just hits that sucker, knocks him to the ground, rips through the top of his onside lung, severs the artery that's under his spine, buries itself in the spine because of the angle that he rolled over to. That arrow goes in. That arrow that should have gone straight through his heart and hit his front leg because he barrel rolled. You think about it. Let's say his spine is the top of my hands. He starts to roll over as the arrow goes in. Bam! Right into that spine. It was in so deep when I went to try to pull it out when he was on the ground, I couldn't do it. I had to unscrew the arrow. Look at this entry wound. Fully through one rib, partially through two others, and then it goes in what you can't see in the picture. And I didn't do as good a job because I was by myself and it was at night and there was coyotes everywhere. I just wanted to get the deer out of there so that I was, positive that it was going to be safe and good meat. Next time I'll definitely do a better job getting like autopsy stuff. The amount of internal damage that this thing did, I mean, to me it was almost like shooting somebody with a hollow point versus shooting them with, a standard lead and copper bullet. Just this massive amount of damage on the inside. Broadhead afterwards, not usable. Arrow afterwards, not usable. It literally bent this little 50 grain outsert on the Victory. This is the actual arrow. And you probably you can kind of see it. It's not spinning good at all. This is probably something where with a field tip you might be able to get away with it, but with a broadhead, even with a mechanical, I'm not going to shoot this thing again. No way. So that arrow's toast. I feel like this is worth a subscribe. Like, if you haven't subscribed or you haven't liked it yet, just do the thing. Turn your phone sideways. Push the little like button. Again, I hate it when people ask, but I'm going to start asking more because I want the channel to continue to grow since all of the money that the channel makes is going into Mere Mortal Archery. If you haven't seen Mere Mortal Archery yet, check out MereMortalArchery.com. 100% of the profits are going to help injured law enforcement officers, first responders, and military get into the sport of archery. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.